Welcome back to the channel, you curd nerds. Are you ready for another mock check ride? Well, of course you're ready for another mock check ride. Why else would you be here? But before we do that, I want to show you all a couple different things. If you look right here, you can see that we've had some pretty amazing growth, right? We've got about 145% growth over the last 28 days, which is amazing, and I can thank y'all for that. It's awesome. I love it. Y'all gonna make me cry. Not really, but I love it. Let's keep it up. But I want to show you over here, though, showing that about 87% of y'all that are watching, you keep watching, and you keep coming back to watch more, aren't subscribed. So make sure, if you are enjoying this kind of content, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you get notified every time we put out another good video. And you can keep coming back and keep watching. Sound good? Now, let's get into the mock check ride. We are going to be doing a mock check ride based on a Piper 28-100i. I remember correctly. It is the newer Piper model that's intended to try and make training in new airplanes more affordable. Now, we don't do a whole lot in systems, mainly because, well, it's a Piper. It's a pretty simple aircraft. They're simple on purpose so that there's not a whole lot of complex things to fail or go wrong, so that students can focus mainly on training instead of a complex airplane. But it's still an amazing piece of equipment, and it's an amazing training tool. So this student did pretty good. Let's get into it. Make sure you leave any questions you got down in the comments. Just hit the record button. I like to ask, as soon as we hit the record button, are you okay with us recording this to be used for social media content, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, etc.?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Sounds good. So what I like to do before we really get into anything is really talk through what a DPE is going to do. Is they're going to ask for your certificates. They're going to ask for your documents. They're going to ask for a photo issued ID. They're going to ask for a logbook, right? All of the stuff that ensures that you can take this check ride, that if you have received the appropriate training, you've met the regulations. And if you want to look up the advisory circular for the endorsements that you're going to need, it's going to be Advisory Circular 6165H. And in the appendix in the back, you're going to find like endorsements required for solo, endorsements required for private pilot. You're going to find pretty much a list of endorsements, right? Some instructors will use the ones that are just in the back of your logbook. The concern with those is sometimes they're not up to date. Right? I don't know if you guys are printing out stickers or if they're handwriting specific endorsements. But if you go to 6165, I think H is the most recent one. If H isn't, it's just the next letter down the alphabet. All right.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you can just verify your endorsements, right? And then there's also Part 61 requirements for private pilot. Have you received, the 10 hours of solo, so many hours of cross country, so many hours of nighttime, 10 landings at night to verify, or 10 landings at night with an operation in a traffic pattern to a full stop, all of those requirements. If you want, go through, check those regulations, just make sure you total up your logbook so that you meet those requirements. All right.
Gotcha.
So,
right. Okay.
Next thing we're going to do, or DPE is going to bring up is, the 3 different outcomes of a check ride, right? So we've got satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and incomplete, right? Satisfactory is consistently within the standards. So that does not mean that you don't drop outside of the standards momentarily. It means that you are consistently within the standards, even in the oral portion or the knowledge portion. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have the answer to every single question that DPE asks. A lot of DPEs, what they're going to do is they're going to dig to see where the end of the knowledge is. It's not to fluster you, okay? So if you start noticing you're missing some questions as they continue to dig along, don't let it bother you. They're trying to see where the extent of the knowledge is. Now, if you miss like the first question they ask, and it's like, oh, all right, maybe we need to reevaluate what's going on here. Okay. Then we've got unsatisfactory, consistently outside of the standards, right? If you got to look up every answer, you get into a steep spiral during the check ride. You end up in a situation that would either violate a federal regulation, put you, the aircraft, or the examiner in some kind of danger, or somebody outside of the aircraft in danger, right? Like, let's say you start the airplane and you start working through your after start checklist and you didn't set the parking brake properly and the airplane starts to roll away. It's probably going to fail the check ride.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
But it seems like it's a very reasonable thing that could happen. It's happened at UND about 3 times.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So, and
I've never said, yeah, but
what was that?
I've never set the parking brake. We usually just do the chocks, and the parking brake's already off. So hopefully I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, now are you you're leaving the chocks on with the engine running?
No, no.
Oh,
Once we do the walk around and everything, we take the chocks off with the checklist.
yeah. What I'm getting at is like, you've got an after start checklist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when students get nervous on their check ride, sometimes they'll let their feet slide off the brakes when they go to do their after start checklist with the engine running, and then the aircraft rolls away. Obviously, that would be unsatisfactory.
Yeah. Okay,
all right.
Gotcha.
Then we have incomplete. All right. Incomplete is due to illness, aircraft airworthiness, safety of flight, time constraints, right? If you want to look up the exact regulation that pertains to what is appropriate for an incomplete, I think it's 6143 Bravo. Okay. And it's like safety of flight, illness, stuff like that. All right. So last question before we really dig in. Have you read through the airman certification standards and you understand the standards that you're being held to?
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into some certificates and documents. So what documents do you need to have in your position readily accessible while acting as pilot in command?
I would need my license and a government issued photo ID.
All right. Is there any other documentation? All I got was license and photo ID.
Oh, medical.
All right. Just make sure I heard that. So what class medical certificate do you need while exercising as pilot in command?
For private pilot, it's required to have at least a third class medical.
All right. Now let's say you get a third class medical, but you're just like, I don't really feel like dealing with DPE or not DPEs, AMEs anymore. Is there anything else you can do?
I mean, you can get the basic med to kind of bypass the AMEs and go to your own physician.
Awesome.
But
well, so how long is third class good for?
60 calendar months.
60 calendar months. What are the other different classes of medicals, right? We got first and second. How long is the second good, or how long is the first class medical good for?
First is good for 12 calendar months. If you're under 40, then once you're above 40, it's 6 calendar months.
All right. And what happens if you're under 40 after 12 calendar months?
It drops down to third class.
Third class. Yes. I'm so glad people are finally getting that. Right. Let's talk about your privileges and limitations. Can you kind of describe to me what you're now allowed to do as a private pilot? Like, congratulations. Yay, you passed your private pilot check ride. What can you do now?
So as a private pilot, I would be able to have passengers in the plane with me. I'd be able to do search and rescue missions as long as it was an actual company and I was designated to do that search and rescue mission from the air. And then I could also fly for charity.
Awesome. Is there any airspace you're now allowed in without even more training or any kind of documentation? Because as a student pilot, there's some airspace you're not allowed in, right?
Yeah. Class Bravo. I know specifically in Atlanta, no student is allowed in an ATL, even with an endorsement. But private pilot, you're good to go in pretty much any airspace, any Bravo airspace at least.
Yep. Is there any airspace as just a private pilot you still can't go into? Like, let's say you hit the lottery, you buy a Cirrus SR-22 turbo with a service ceiling at 24,000 feet. Is there any airspace you're not allowed in?
Alpha airspace.
All right. Where does Alpha start?
Starts at 18,000 feet. AGL.
Awesome. All right. So let's say, congratulations, you passed your private pilot certificate. Now you're broke, so you don't fly for like 6 months. Is there anything you got to do before you can go fly again with passengers?
With passengers, yeah. So you would need to become current again with passengers because you need to have 3 takeoffs and landings within the last 90 days during the day.
All right. What about at night?
At night, same thing, just to a full stop.
Awesome, awesome. And I love how you did that. Um, you were specific about when you needed those landings, about it being day, but you didn't divulge any more information, right? And that's really the best way to take a check, right? Is provide the information that they're asking, right? When the DPE says, "What time? Do you know what time it is?" You respond with, "Yes, I know what time it is."
Yeah. And
Not
I knew that was going to be my downfall because I like explaining things and teaching things, but I just have to remember stop talking.
Yep, and
Answer
that's
the
a
question.
yep, and you know what? That's going to be great when you go to take your CFI because the DPE is going to be like, "All right, you get it. Stop talking. You're annoying." Um,
That's-
but all right. So can you kind of explain the difference between in your mind the difference between proficiency and currency?
So currency is legal and proficiency is safe.
All right. So what would you view as proficient? Like I gave that example of you didn't fly for 6 months, right? Would you say that 3 takeoffs and landings is enough to get you back to proficiency?
Not proficiency. I mean, if I'm taking up other passengers with me, I would want to do another flight with an instructor or do a few more flights just to get myself used to being in the air again and being in a plane again.
All right. And proficiency also includes location, right? I did all my flight training in Arizona. Doesn't mean I should be flying around in Seattle, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thanks.
So what flight times required to be logged?
Um, like what flights are required to be logged?
Yeah, what do I have
So
to put in my
basically,
logbook?
anything that is going towards a certification that you're trying to obtain.
All right. One other thing.
And flight reviews as well.
Well, recency, right?
Reasons.
Currency, sorry, currency. Because how do you prove it, right? In the event of an accident, how do you prove that you had your takeoffs and landings within 90 days, right?
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
So let's get into the aircraft. What documents are required to be in the aircraft? Let's say we're just going up on a nice VFR flight, nothing special.
Gotcha. So first, you want to make sure you have your supplements in there. Like mine has a G1000, so the plane wasn't built with that G1000, so it has to have that supplement saying manual, pretty much. And then the placards need to be shown. If they're worn off or anything, the plane is unairworthy. You also have the airworthiness certificate, and then the registration, the radio license if it's going for international, the operating handbook, pilot's operating handbook, and the weight and balance.
Awesome. Is there anything that would cause that airworthiness certificate to not be valid?
If it's like, what's it called? If it's damaged beyond repair, I guess totaled, or if it's not within the FAA regulations of being, if it's being unairworthy,
Yeah, if it's kept in
unairworthy.
if it's kept in an unairworthy state or be destroyed beyond all repair, right? What would count as being held in an unairworthy state? Like what kind of stuff is required to get done on an airplane to make sure it maintains its airworthiness?
It needs to have inspections, regular inspections.
All right, and what are those?
So first of all, you need to have the airworthiness directives maintained within the specific plane. And then you need to have the VOR checked every 30 days if it's going for instrument. And then you have the annual checks every year, the 100 hours if it's for hire, and then the altimeter every 24 months, and then the The ELT as well needs to be checked every 12 months or every hour of continuous use, or half hour or half of the battery life has been depleted, or if it has been on for an unknown amount of time. And then the static Pitot-static tubes every 24 months as well.
All right. So the only thing that was I think you might just have a little bit of a misunderstanding on that ELT. So it's the ELT itself has to be checked for functionality. It's the battery that's being checked in it. So the battery and the ELT in your airplane, yes, they are a sealed unit and they will be replaced together, right? The Cessna with a G1000, it's in the tail. My ELT, believe it or not, takes a 9-volt battery.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just a yellow. It's just a little yellow box that sits in the thing. But when you said half of its useful life, that doesn't mean like my cell phone's at 50%. That means if the battery is rated to hold a charge for 10 years, it needs to be replaced at the 5-year mark. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
So half of the battery's useful life, not half of the battery's useful charge. Right?
Okay, half the battery.
Yep. Now, you said airworthiness directives. Can you kind of describe to me what an airworthiness directive is?
So those are just mandatory, looking for a word, not repairs, but mandatory updates, I guess you could say, that come from the manufacturer saying that this needs to be done. And if it's not airworthiness or not airworthy anymore.
So they start from the manufacturer, yes. The manufacturer like kind of admits that something's wrong with the airplane, but they really come from the FAA. It's service bulletins that come directly from the manufacturer. Do you understand the difference between a service bulletin and an AD?
Yeah, service bulletin is optional. It's kind of optional.
Yeah, it's recommended, but like if you don't do it and you get into a crash, your insurance is going to go, why didn't you do the service bulletin? Are you sure that service bulletin didn't, directly relate to this accident or incident? Not covered, denied.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Right.
And they can be repairs. Technically on my aircraft, right, for a while there was an attachment point for the wing spars where they were like, oh yeah, you could develop small cracks as long as they don't extend past this part. Your airplane's fine. And then they're like, wait a minute, that's stupid. You need to repair those.
Okay.
So it's repairs, maintenance, inspections that need to be complied with to ensure that the aircraft maintains an airworthy state, right? Cessnas.
What I was thinking is, okay. Yeah.
No.
What I was thinking is that repair was like it has to break first, but it's not necessarily broken. That's what I was. That's why I did say repair.
I get I get what you're saying, right? Now, who's responsible for maintaining an aircraft in an airworthy condition?
The owner and operator.
Owner, operator, right? Who's responsible for ensuring that an aircraft is in an airworthy state?
The pilot in command.
All right. Did your flight school actually let you dig through the maintenance logs? Or do they have like a maintenance status sheet?
They have maintenance logs. Like they give us a folder when we're walking out to the plane. And then within the checklist, it says check maintenance. So you just have to make sure that all the maintenance logs have responses from maintenance saying that, if someone saw that this needed to be fixed, it actually was done. So you were good to go.
Okay. Now, so I guess the big question is like, I understand a lot of schools, they don't hand out the maintenance logs to the students. Cause I mean, they're kind of big and cumbersome. Here, I'll grab mine real quick.
Okay. Oh, geez.
This is an aircraft maintenance log. So you see why I'm kind of asking, have you actually seen these? Because
no,
a lot of students, a lot of students never get the opportunity to actually dig through a maintenance log to verify airworthiness. They get a maintenance status sheet, which is like a sheet of paper saying this is when these things were complied with. And then like the last 30 days of squawks or maintenance reports, right? So before your check ride, like definitely, especially if you intend on buying an airplane, ask to be able to look through the maintenance log of your aircraft and try and find all the associated inspections just to see what they look like, right? Because I know when I bought my first airplane, I'm sitting here like, what the fuck are these things supposed to look like? You know, like, is there a standard form for, because like this is the maintenance log for all the American maintenance. And then in here is all the Canadian maintenance.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Because the aircraft spent a little bit of time in Canada.
Okay. All right.
All right. So just use it
like, so are those for maintenance logs of all time since the beginning, since it was manufactured?
Yeah. So yours will probably be a little smaller given that it's a G1000. And I mean, I'm assuming that I forget what year what your aircraft year was. What was it?
I think it was 1970 or 1960.
Oh, wow. You have and it's got a G1000 in it? Dang. They spent a lot of money on updating such an old airplane.
I don't know the exact, because we get them from Daytona and they ship them over or fly them over, I guess, to us in Georgia. But for the POH,
so POH and maintenance log different. Oh, but the POH you have.
Yeah, POH I have is 2007 actually.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it's an 07. So its maintenance log is going to be a lot smaller than that one. That one's from 1984.
Okay.
So, definitely a lot more, there's at the very least, 40 something annuals in there. Right.
Okay.
So we talked about who's responsible. So who can conduct maintenance on an aircraft? Let's say you get your private pilot certificate. Can you maintain an airplane?
You can maintain it as long as you're not changing any of the aerodynamics of the actual airplane.
So it's not just changing like aerodynamics of the actual airplane. Like you technically can't disassemble a brake caliper, right? It seems like a really simple job, right? You can do things like replenish fluids, change fluids, change lights. What I say is if you got to use more than 2 different wrenches, you probably need to talk to a mechanic. That's like a good rule of thumb to keep you out of trouble. Right.
Okay.
It's just the best way to look at it. Right. Because technically changing spark plugs, again, you can't do that. It seems like a really simple thing. Like anybody who's, had kind of like a blue collar parental figure that taught them how to maintain their vehicle. Like we've all changed spark plugs at one point in our time. My mechanic's like, you can't change your own spark plugs. I was like, dude, what?
But I know how.
Yeah, but it's not preventative maintenance, right?
Gotcha.
So if you need more than 2 wrenches, probably talk to a mechanic, right? Let's talk about the equipment you need in the airplane, right? If you walk up to your aircraft, right, and the attitude indicator's dead, right? Yeah, I know you've got a G1000, but let's say for some reason the attitude indicator just never boots up in the G1000. You still have heading, you still got airspeed, you still got all the other instruments. It's just the blue over brown never comes up. Is the aircraft airworthy?
I mean, we still have the standby also. Are you saying like in a situation where both of them are dead?
Yep, both attitude indicators are dead.
Gotcha. It's still airworthy.
All right. Where would you check? Let's say, throw away the attitude indicator idea. Just there's another piece of equipment that is broken. What are you going to check? Where are you going to look to verify that this aircraft is still safe to operate?
I would look at 91205. Also, I have the KOEL and the POH. And then I also have the TCDS. All
right. There's a couple other places. The first reg that you really want to stop at is 91213. 91213 is really what covers everything. 91213 references 91205, which is where you get your A tomato flames, flaps, and all that jazz. Okay.
Reference.
Yeah. So when you're reading through 91213, it's like, hey, you need to check this, 91205, TCDS, KOEL, right? But there's a couple other things that 91205 references. Do you know what they are?
91205 references.
So we've got ADs, right?
Right. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
ADs can have extra pieces of equipment installed to verify that to help the aircraft maintain in a safe and airworthy state. Right. Older Cessnas had to have seatbelt tensioners attached from the floor up to the seat, because what was happening is when you started to rotate, when you started to pull back, the seat was breaking loose and you were like sliding back, holding on to the yoke.
Oh, gee, that's terrifying.
So an airworthiness directive required them to attach auto tensioners from the floor to the seat, right? So in the event that the seat ever did start to slide back uncommanded, that auto tensioner would grab the seat real quick and it wouldn't let it fall back anymore. If that piece of equipment isn't working, aircraft's not airworthy. It's part of an airworthiness directive. You're not going to find it in 91205. You're not going to find it in the POH, but you're going to find it in an airworthiness directive. All right.
Okay. 213 is higher. So start with 213 and then go into 205.
Yep. And, or I could have them backwards. I might have them backwards. But I do know it's 91205 and 91213 that covers all inoperative equipment and whatnot. So you check your 91205, 91213, which is going to tell you to go to airworthiness directives, supplemental type certificates, type certificate data sheets, KOEL, POH. Right. So you got your TCDS, you had your, also MEL if the aircraft is equipped with an MEL.
Right.
So you had your A tomato flames, flaps, that good acronym, and that's great for a Cessna. Right. It's great for a fairly new Cessna that doesn't have a whole lot of maintenance that needs to be complied with. Right.
Right.
But if you ever want to go buy an airplane, you need to make sure you know where to check to verify that the aircraft's airworthy, right?
Right.
So, is there any way you could get an airplane that's unairworthy from where it is to where it can get fixed?
Yeah. So you could get a ferry permit to get to an area to where you can fix the plane if it's not airworthy at the moment.
Okay. Do you know where you get those?
You should reach out to your FSDO.
Yeah, it's going to be your local FSDO. Awesome. All right, let's get into some systems and limitations a little bit. All right, what are the primary flight controls of this aircraft?
So that's going to be the ailerons, the elevators, the rudder. I saw someone say that the trim is also primary, but I didn't.
No,
that's just like
nah. Are your hands and feet on them at all times? That's a primary flight control, right? If your hands and feet are on them at all times, that's primary flight control. Secondary, what are some secondary flight controls?
Secondary would be trim, flaps.
Let's think bigger. Let's think airliner. What are some secondary flight controls on an airliner?
Slats. See, it could also have elevator trim and rudder trim, either or.
Air brakes.
Or both, I guess. Air brakes. Okay.
Air brakes, spoilers, right? Awesome. Talk to me about the engine that's in this aircraft.
So this is going to be a Lycoming engine with horizontally opposed pistons, and it's normally aspirated, air cooled, and a direct drive with 180 horsepower.
All right. And what RPM is that horsepower rated at?
At 2,700 RPM.
2,700 RPM. So let's break down the IO360 part of it. What does that I mean?
That's thought of it today. Injected a fuel injected engine.
It's fuel injected. So what are some of the benefits of a fuel injected airplane?
So that's going to be, it's going to have more efficiency. It's going to have better fuel efficiency, more power. It's you're not going to have any. You're not going to have to worry about any kind of icing within the engine, or you're not going to worry about carb icing strictly. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about carburetors. You said something about carburetor icing. What is that?
So that is basically if you're at a certain, if the humidity is above 70% and your temperature is below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, your carburetor can develop moisture within the carburetor itself, and that moisture will begin to freeze. And it'll start restricting the airflow that's going in within the carburetor.
All right. Awesome. I love it. I'd have to double check on that 70% and 40 degrees. It sounds right, but to be honest, I'd leave the numbers out, right? What is carburetor icing? Not when are you susceptible to carburetor icing? Remember, they answer the question. Answer the question. What is carburetor icing? At high humidity and low temperatures, my carburetor will build up ice due to the Venturi action, dropping pressure and dropping. Due to the Venturi action and the atomization of fuel, it drops temperature and condenses moisture that eventually freezes on the side of the wall, on the walls of the Venturi, which can restrict the airflow and even bind up the butterfly or bind up the actual throttle. Right?
Okay.
How do you deal with carburetor icing?
So you would open up the or turn on the carburetor heat.
All right. What are you expecting? If you were to turn on carburetor heat, what would you expect to happen?
So immediately you would expect the RPM to drop.
All right. Is the engine going to run better or worse than when it was before the carb heat application?
I know run worse.
Yep. Do you know why?
Yeah. So basically, what's happening is that an engine only likes to have air and fuel. So obviously, when ice melts, it turns into water, which is not combustible. So that air fuel mixture turns into air, fuel, and water. And then once the water is not combustible, it's going to deteriorate the performance of the engine temporarily. But then once that water is no longer in the engine, that RPM is going to raise back up. The engine will perform better.
Awesome. What kind of gas can you put in this thing?
100 low lead.
Is there any other gas, according to POH, that's approved for this aircraft?
I'm pretty sure it's 100.
All right. You know what color it is?
The green.
Green, right? So I can't just run to Chevron and get some Chevron with Tectron, cleaning my valves, 91 octane, right?
No.
No.
Definitely not.
No. There are certain Cessnas that certain Lycoming engines that you can get an STC and run it off of pump gas. Do I recommend it?
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's up to you, man. It's up to you if you want to. All right. How much gas does this thing hold?
56 gallons.
How much of that can I use?
3.
What was that?
3.
I'm going to assume you said 53. I keep hearing 3, so I'm assuming it's not 43.
Yeah, 53. 53.
All right. 53. All right. I'm just digging through. Can you tell me what VNE is for this airplane?
The never exceed speed is going to be 163 knots.
All right. And that is indicated because, well, let's be honest, that's the only thing we can read. What's the VNO?
Right.
Like, what does VNO mean?
That's going to be the normal operating speed.
All right. So that's the limit of your normal operating speed, right? Your POH, some older Cessnas call it normal operation speed. Some newer Cessnas call it maximum structural cruising speed. I think my personal airplane calls it the normal operation speed. Use the terminology that's referenced in the POH. Right.
Okay.
So the POH calls it maximum structural cruising speed. When can I exceed that?
When you're in smooth air.
Awesome. What's VA?
That is the maneuvering speed.
Maneuvering.
Maximum maneuvering speed.
All right. Now, why does it change with weight? I'm looking at your POH showing 1,900 pounds at 90, but at 2,550, it's at 105. What's going on there?
I know it does change with weight, but never actually researched why it does actually.
So if I'm at 1,900 pounds at 90 knots, right? I need to, let's just throw a number out there. I need to maintain a 5-degree angle of attack. And my critical angle of attack is 12. So I have 7 degrees of angle of attack in which I can generate more acceleration and more pressure on the wing, right?
Right.
Now, at 2,550 pounds, I now have to maintain 8 degrees of angle of attack. I don't have as much gap between my critical angle of attack and my current angle of attack to apply acceleration and force to the wing. It's a comparison between using what lift I'm using versus available lift. So if I'm down at 1,900 pounds and I'm at 105 knots, because as I accelerate, my wing will generate more lift at a lower angle of attack, right? So I'm at 2 degrees of angle of attack, generating just as much lift as if I was at 90 knots. Now I have 10 degrees of angle of attack for me to apply acceleration to this aircraft, and I can exceed that aircraft's limitations.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Makes sense.
So if I am below maneuvering speed, what can I do and be safe?
You can do one full deflection of one of the flight surfaces without structural damage.
Without structural damage. And it is one full motion. It is not oscillations. Okay. So it's not a matter of like, yes, there's a yoke attached to my desk.
Right. Yeah. I remember there was that happened from an oscillation. I forgot what flight it was, but the captain was trying to get out of the wake turbulence. And he was oscillating the rudder.
It was actually the FO. Basically. Yeah, it was the first officer. It was American on 995, I believe. I teach it in the ATP CTP course when we were talking about appropriate use of rudder. And he got into some wake turbulence of a 747. And initially, like he was okay. Like he rode it out a little bit. But then on the second one, he was dancing on the rudders and cranking the ailerons back and forth. And that caused enough stress to snap the tail off.
Yeah.
Can't really fly an airplane without a tail. Right?
Kind of hard.
Right. Awesome. Let's talk about some indications on your airspeed indicator, right? So what's the white arc?
That is where you can use your flaps, where you're going slow enough to use your flaps.
All right. So that's the top of the white arc. What's the bottom of the white arc?
That's going to be basically the stall speed with flaps extended.
All right. It's more stall. It's landing configuration, stall speed, right? Okay. Because it's VSO, right? For stuff out.
Yeah.
Right. So if you start getting into airplanes that have like gear that have, landing gear and whatnot, VSO or VSO or VS10, VS20, you've got a couple different landing configurations for those aircraft. So just remember, it's not just stall speed with full flaps. It's stall speed in landing configuration.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Now digging through your POH, trying to find some gotchas that students miss pretty often. Now, let's say I've got a cooler that weighs 90 pounds and a tent that weighs 48 pounds, and I'm trying to put that in a cargo compartment. So I'm looking at your baggage areas, right? It says I can put 120 pounds in baggage area A and 50 pounds in baggage area B. Am I still good? Can I throw these things back there?
You said the cooler was 90 pounds and the umbrella was 40.
Yeah.
Uh, According to that, I was looking in there. I haven't seen any specific limitations that I've seen. So I wouldn't.
So I know you're like, well, he asked the questions. There's got to be a damn limitation. Right. So it's 120 pounds combined for A and B. All right. A lot of times study guides that schools hand out don't really bring up those little limitations. Right. And I know it's not something that you use in your day-to-day life, but just make sure we actually read through the POH and understand all the aircraft's limitations. I know it seems a little ridiculous to understand all of the aircraft's limitations, but your limitations section, what is it, 12 pages? Yeah, I think it's about 12 pages. Well, then we've got, it's chapter 2, but we've got our KOEL in there, fuel limitations, flaps markings, right? So I guess it's a couple pages, maybe 30 pages. The Airbus POH, the POH for an Airbus is about 6,000 pages.
Jeez.
So when we're talking about limitations, understand your limitations. There's a lot, it gets a lot deeper, right? So it's good to start now with the expectation that I need to know the limitations of my aircraft. Okay. I
see it.
Yeah, I wanted to go to one more. Can you talk to me about the electrical system in this aircraft?
Yeah, so it's going to be a battery, which is 12 volts, 12-volt battery, and a 24-volt alternator.
Okay, so let me find that section real quick. Because if I remember correctly, the G1000 is a 28-volt system with a 24-volt battery. Electrical. Oh, what section is it? Is it section 7, I think? That's going to cover... Yeah, airplane systems and descriptions, section 7. Because rarely ever are you going to have if your alternator's 24 volts, it's just going to fry a 12-volt battery. Because it's going to overcharge it, right? Flight controls, airframe. No, it's going to be past that. Pilot panel, central panel, flight instruments, attitude indicator. So right here, page 7-47, electrical system. The airplane's equipped with a 28-volt direct current electrical system. Refer to page figure 7-7 with a belt-driven 60-amp power generator with a 24-volt main storage battery located inside the engine cowling on the left side of the firewall. You got that?
Okay. Yeah, I just got it.
All right.
747.
Now, is there any other batteries in this airplane?
Let me see. Yeah, I mean, you have the ELT battery. Well, kind of.
Yeah. Now, is there any battery that you test right before you start this thing?
Yeah, the standby battery.
All right. So you got 3 batteries in this airplane. You got the main 24-volt storage battery that's recharged by a 28-volt DC electrical generator. That's DC alternator. Then you've got your standby battery that's located between the firewall and the instrument panel, right? What is that standby battery used for?
So basically, it's used for if the alternator quits. Basically, it's going to go onto the battery itself.
Okay. So what's going to happen on that standby battery? Or I guess first, what's going to about how long is that main battery going to last for?
It's going to last for 30 minutes.
All right. Now, what about that backup battery? I'm struggling to find it in the POH. All right. Low voltage circuit breaker. Yeah, it might not be in this. That might be something that might be like a rule of thumb kind of thing. 45 minutes or so is what I remember. But I could be wrong on that. And given that I don't find it in the POH, moving on. What instruments are powered by a vacuum pump?
By the vacuum pump, it's going to be the ARs, the attitude indicator, the heading reference system, or not heading, the heading situation, and then the turn coordinator.
All right. So turn coordinator, no. Most turn coordinators are electric. Your aircraft has a turn coordinator that's provided by the G1000, right? It doesn't have the standby turn coordinator. All right. Now, what I want you to recognize right now, we've been at this for about an hour. Your brain's kind of tired, isn't it? Right? Recognize that on your check ride. Take a break. All right. Take a break, drink some water. Let the DPE know, like, hey, man, I'm a little fried right now. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, go get some water. But let's see where else we can dig. Let me go back to my POA. What instruments run off of your Pitot-static system?
The vertical speed indicator, the altitude. Yeah, the altitude, and then the airspeed indicator.
Awesome. So where does the airspeed, or correction, does the vertical speed indicator use the pitot tube?
No, it uses a static.
Awesome.
Port.
Let's get into a little bit of aerodynamics. I know we talked a little bit about some already. Talk me through a spin recovery. Well, first of all, how do we enter a spin? What would cause us to enter a spin?
Entering a spin, if you're turning without adequate or too much of rudder usage, or if you're particularly turning base turning final from base with the crosswind coming in as well.
Okay.
Would help you to turn.
Now, can I stall can I spin if the wing is installed?
If it would be a one wing stall as a spin usually.
It's not one. They're both stalled. It's just one stalled more than the other, right? Do you understand the difference between a stall and a spiral?
Yeah, I always get confused between the two, especially with one stall. I remember I had to study a lot with that. But so a spiral is basically you're spiraling down, and then a spin is where both wings are stalled and you're basically just kind of tumbling through the air.
It's not really a tumble. A tumble and a spin are two different things. See if you get a buddy with a Pitts. They'll show you the difference.
I would like to do that.
Right. So to make it real easy, it's all about the axis of rotation. Where is the axis of rotation? Is it inside the airplane or outside the airplane? A spiral, the axis of rotation is on the outside of the airplane, right? So if I'm spiraling, the axis of rotation is here. Okay.
Gotcha.
If I'm spinning, the axis of rotation is within the airplane. Have you ever seen a maple leaf fall out of a tree?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a spin.
Gotcha. Okay.
That is exactly a spin. Okay. So how do I recover from a spin?
So recovering from a spin, you'd want to do power idle, ailerons neutral, and then full rudder, full opposite rudder, whichever one is resisting you the most, and then elevator briskly down.
Awesome. So you know how to recover from a spin. Most people are just going, oh, power idle, ailerons neutral, rudder opposite rotation, elevator briskly forward. But you're like, yeah, press the one that fights you. Because like a lot of people are like, oh, just press the one opposite. It's like, okay, have you ever been on a roller coaster? Which way is that roller coaster spinning? I don't know. You think you're gonna figure like
right?
So you think you're gonna do any better in an airplane when you might be dying? So let's talk through this so that we know exactly which one to press. Okay. Because it's got to be pretty terrifying if you get in a spin and you start stomping on the wrong rudder. You're like, why is it not stopping? Somebody call my mommy. Right. So what causes a stall?
If the plane is, or if the wings are at a too high of an angle of attack.
All right. Can I stall upside down?
You're upside down. I would assume so. Yeah. I mean, if you're, as long as you're generating lift.
Well, I mean, I can stall at any attitude, upside down, left, right, any attitude and any airspeed, right? What does banking do to my stall speed?
It increases it, right? Or decreases it.
No, it increases it. Banking increases my stall speed because banking increases my load factor, right? You've done steep turns, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you end up with, about 1.8 Gs on you. That's going to result in about a 30%, 25 to 30% increase in your stall speed. Okay. If you crank it all the way over to 60 degrees of bank, you're going to have 2 Gs loaded on the airplane. That's going to give you about a 40% increase on your stall speed. Okay.
Yeah.
If you really want to do the math, the stall speed increases by the square root of the G loading on the airplane.
Okay.
You're gonna do that in the airplane, right?
Yeah. No.
No, not even a little bit. Right. So I am going to pull up SkyVector real quick, and I'm going to load your, a couple legs from your nav log in there, just so I can get an idea where you're flying. We could talk about the airspace, make sure there's no like big gotchas sitting right in front of you. I'm going to choose your longest one just so that it's, we can see more. So I see KRYY to K, is that GAD?
Yeah, Gaston.
All right, KRRY to KG, what was it?
A GAD.
Yeah, all right. Oh, I definitely put something wrong in because that's, I'm assuming it's not 1,700 miles.
No.
RYY. It didn't take the RYY.
Oh, gotcha.
There we go. I'm like, that's not right. All right. So I'm going to share my screen with you real quick. I just have to. There we go. Let's share screen. Go live. You should see like a button somewhere that says something along the lines of like see live or something like that.
Okay. Watch stream. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Watch stream.
Gotcha.
All right. So you got my screen. So talk me through your, no, not that one. I don't want that one. I wanted, where'd it go? I'm just going to put your nav log over to my right. All right. So talk me through your flight plan. So I see Cedar Crest Road. We're going RYY from here. I'm not seeing a Cedar Crest Road anywhere.
So what I did is I used the like a road map, which is not on the sectional, but it's on like I use flight and maps together. Just because for my top of climb, I wasn't able to find something that was really distinctive where my top climb was going to be.
Okay. No, I mean that makes sense, right? If you couldn't find anything distinctive, you found like a road or whatnot. So you said it was like 6 miles out. Trying to find your cruise altitude. Every flight school uses a different uses a dang different nav log. All right, so I see 4,500. Why'd you pick 4,500?
So I picked 4,500 because I know that you need to have, when you're going with the magnetic heading of east or west in this case, basically, you would need to have even number plus 500. But then also just to avoid all the mountains or anywhere in this vicinity, I just picked a 44,500 feet in that case.
All right. Is there any airspace that you're trying to avoid?
Not necessarily, although I did. I started out going northwest so as to avoid the parachute jump area near Moorfield.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yeah. Awesome. So you were able to identify that. So what's this Bravo airspace and what altitude does it start at?
That one. So that is Atlanta Bravo airspace. It starts at 7,000 feet.
All right. Awesome. Let's say, so we see mode C, ADSB out 30 nautical mile. Let's say Atlanta, for some reason, extends this Bravo airspace out to here, all right, outside of this mode C veil. What kind of equipment would I need under that Bravo shelf?
So I would need a transponder and a two-way radio.
It's all the same stuff, right? So this mode C veil is a requirement of that altitude reporting transponder ADSB out. Two-way radio technically isn't a requirement unless you're trying to actually get into the airspace. So we see right over here, the mode C veil extends outside the Bravo shelf, right? So even here, even though we're not within the lateral boundaries of Bravo airspace, we still need that mode C and the ADSB out. But if for some reason they extend the airspace outside the mode C veil, as long as you're within the lateral boundaries of Bravo airspace, not necessarily within the vertical boundaries of it, but as long as you're within the lateral boundaries of it as well, you still need that mode C and ADSB out. The only reason I bring it up is in Phoenix, the Phoenix Bravo airspace extends outside the mode C veil, and it's the only one I found that does it, but I'm not like looking around the country for Bravo airspace. But it's possible to get yourself all hemmed up because you didn't have the appropriate equipment, right?
Okay, gotcha.
So just keep that in mind. What airspace is this all the way at the ground?
It's going to be Echo airspace.
All right. Up to what altitude?
Up to
out here.
Up
to Alpha. Awesome. Yeah. Why is this airport purple and this one blue?
The blue one, KRYY, is towered, and the magenta is untowered.
All right. You already know what the parachutes mean. Awesome. What's this?
That's for the looking. Is that for the non NDB, non-directional beacon?
Non-directional beacon. That is the first one I've seen in years. To be honest, if it still works, it would blow my mind. What is this blue number?
That's saying the where the terrain is, like the highest part of that area for terrain.
All right. So it's not necessarily the highest. It's going to give you around 400 feet of clearance from the highest. So if you maintain at least this altitude, you're going to clear all your obstructions. Okay. What's this anchor?
Waterway.
Seaplane base.
Or seaplane.
Yep. Seaplane base. What's this?
That is for the military VR 1052.
So what do I need to be concerned about if I'm either following along this or crossing it?
Any high speed, low altitude planes flying.
Awesome. Well, not awesome, but like it's awesome that you know it. Avoid it. What airspace is this?
Is a Class Charlie airspace. That's where I'm at for my cross country night.
Oh, awesome. So you are well aware of it. Why is this one got an X in it?
That is a runway that's no longer used.
Wow, it's closed airport, right? Why is this an airport, but it's empty, but this one's filled in?
The one that's empty, I believe it's non-asphalt, like a grass runway.
Yeah, I mean,
grass airport.
Yeah, no defined hard surface. Okay. Looking around. What's this?
A military operating area.
Can you go in there?
Yeah.
All right. Same idea though. Military traffic, need to be wary of it, right?
Right.
What's this one?
That's a restricted area.
All right. Can I go in this one?
You can, as long as you have clearance, but you're probably not going to get clearance.
No, you're not. I mean, you like, yeah, I mean, it's possible, and you can ask, and they can go, "Are you stupid?" What else? What's this?
That is the an ADIS. I can't remember the acronym or the name of it.
Shit about the acronym. It's an ADIS. How do I cross it?
You can cross it as long as you file a DVFR.
Okay. The acronym, it's Air Defense Interdiction Zone. So what happens if I cross this and go, oh shit, and then I come back across? What might happen?
You're probably going to get a couple F-16s following you.
All right. How do I respond to that? Or what am I expecting to see and what am I supposed to do next?
What they're probably going to do is they're going to rock their wings and request for you to follow them. And then if you don't follow them, they'll cross in front of you and rock their wings again and request for you to follow them again. And then I'm not sure if they do a third time with flares or if they just shoot you down afterwards. But they're going to request you to follow.
Yeah, I think it really all depends on, the level of aircraft. They might do another one with some flares. But yeah, just follow them. They're not there to say hi. What's this?
Right. That's a an area of man, I'm trying to look for it in my head. I can't. Basically an area that's saying that this is a protected area, like a national protected area kind of thing, where you can it is recommended for you to fly above 2,000 feet in that area.
All right. Wildlife zone, wilderness zone, right? There's New Orleans. All right, let's go to, where should I go if I'm trying to find some weather?
You can go to, I usually go to 1-800 wxbrief.com and then
You know what?
aviationweather.gov.
Yeah, I don't have an account for 1-800-WX-BRIEF. So I don't go to it. I use aviationweather.gov and then I call. I'm one of those weirdos that still calls.
It's still called.
Yeah. I'm just like, why are you calling us? Like, I don't know how not to. Like, what really? It's a high pressure right now? Yeah. All right. Do you know what these are for? What would you use this for? Why would you pull this one up? Because I know a lot of student pilots are like, oh, I fly within this state. Like, there's just way too much information here. I don't need anything here.
So that is going to be a prog chart. So basically, it's letting me know where there's pressure gradients, where there's high pressure, low pressure, where there's cold fronts, stationary fronts, and things like that, and what to expect if I'm going in that area based on what is happening within the atmosphere.
Okay, awesome. What are you going to use it for? Like, I can explain what how a nuclear warhead works. I still couldn't tell you how. Like, actually, I couldn't explain how. I don't know why I use that as an example. But like, I can explain what something's showing me. But like, how are you going to use this information? How do you include this in your aeronautical decision making?
So, if those isobars, isobars are close to you should expect to have higher pressure gradient, which is gonna give you higher winds. Low pressure areas are also going to be high winds. Right near Georgia, it looks like there's a trough also, which is a line of low pressure area, which is more high winds and maybe bad weather. And then you should expect also during that, where that whole cold front is, you should expect colder air, or stuff like Nevada, I think that is, where there's a stationary front. You should expect that weather, whatever it is that you're looking at now, for it to stay there for at least a few days.
Awesome. So you're really thinking of like big picture as opposed to like METARs and TAFs. What's the most accurate weather report?
Probably a PIREP.
All right. It's almost like I gave you the answer. My mouse was right over it. Right. Right. Because it makes a whole lot more sense. If I look at this one, right? I don't even know what this is. Flight level 260. It's just showing me that the tops of some clouds are at 250, right? Not a whole lot of information there. But the reason I'm looking in this Tucson and Salt Lake City area is because for the longest time, there was a lot of mountain waves crossing the Rocky Mountains. And even though these reports are coming from, flight level 360 and whatnot, right? Mountain waves, they can get real high into the atmosphere. But if I fly around the Rocky Mountains low as general aviation, right? It's not like those reports don't mean anything to me. So you can really look at these, especially at the high altitude ones. All right, how unstable is the air mass? Right. Let's go look up some weather at an airport you've never been to. I mean, it's not that bad, right? Yep, this is JFK. Can you just read the METAR to me?
Yeah, so at JFK Airport on today, the date of 1951 Zulu, the wind speed is 9 knots at 180 degrees. Visibility is 10 statute miles with scattered clouds at 5,000 feet, and broken clouds at one. Let's see, at 10,000. No, 10,100 feet or 10,000. I was messing up on this. 11,000 feet. Broken clouds at 11,000 feet, overcast at 14,000 feet. The temperature is 10 degrees Celsius. Dew point is 4 degrees Celsius. The altimeter reading is 2956 with the sea level pressure at 100,009 with showers in the vicinity. I don't know what the SW means, but
I think it's southwest west, showers in the vicinity, southwest west of the airport.
okay,
I could be wrong on that. I'd have to look that one up. What about the where's the peak winds on this TAF? Like what time?
Do
you need me to zoom in?
Wind looks like, going to be 2,300.
All right. And what's the what is it?
At 25, gusting 35 knots at 300 degrees.
Awesome.
Really windy.
Yeah. I don't think I want to go fly there.
No.
I'm good. Like I keep having to cut branches off my freaking birch tree because it keeps breaking off, and I'm afraid it's going to hit my house. It's that windy, which sucks. I really like my birch tree. All right, let's look at some winds and temps. So right here's the line between 24,000. Why is there no positive or negative up here?
It is assumed that all of the temperatures are negative up there.
Right. Awesome. Because if it was 44 degrees Celsius above 24,000 feet, we'd have other problems than what the winds and temps are.
Yeah.
What's this?
So it's basically saying that around that area, it's light and variable winds with a temperature of 3 degrees Celsius.
Awesome. What about this one?
Let me see. So it's saying that the winds at 30,000 feet there are going to be at 260 degrees at 37 knots and negative 48 degrees Celsius.
Awesome. Tools, decision supporting. Is this what I'm looking for? I don't think so. Yeah, I already looked at that one. Is this one? At what altitude would I suspect freezing along this blue line?
4,000 feet.
Awesome.
4, right?
Yep, that was a 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you're not climbing up to those altitudes. So, all right. What are your questions for me?
I would say, I know last time, like the cross country that we were looking at before, there was a guy that was flying to the left of me and I was on the right. So I had the right of way, and you're just kind of coming in at a collision course like that, and he wasn't moving. So I just had to like dive at the last second. So what do you do when someone is not following the regs on their end, when you know that like I had the right of way, but he wasn't moving out of my way, you know?
So it does get a little dicey when it comes to like two airplanes that cruise at roughly the same speed, right? Because the faster traffic should be passing on the right. If you're on the right, you should have the right of way, right? Um,
Yeah.
just fly as safely as possible, right? It's your job to see and avoid. Did they see you, right? It's very possible that they didn't see you. In my airplane, I have a mid-mounted wing. I can't see behind me for shit. So I don't know if there's somebody back there. Turn to the right, avoid them, give them more space, right? If you are the faster traffic, you're supposed to be passing them on the right, not them giving way to you passing them on the right, right?
Okay.
So if you're approaching an airplane and you need to pass them to the right, but they keep coming, pass them farther to the right. Right. If they are kind of like this way, then turn and get behind them. Okay. If
Gotcha.
somebody else isn't going to follow the rules, just operate as safe as possible.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And it's the same thing if they were perpendicular, like coming in like this, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if you guys are coming in like this, this airplane should obviously turn right. This one should turn away. If you're perpendicular to each other, both of you should try to turn away from each other. Turn with the flow of that traffic, right? So if you're coming at each other and you think you're going to hit, turn so that you'll fly next to each other, and then you can break away and come back around. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's more of aeronautical decision making, right? If I'm going to hit somebody that's crossing in front of me, one of us is probably at the wrong damn altitude.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why it's that like 179 to like 360, and then it like splits it by 1 degree so that you can avoid those kind of perpendicular approaches or perpendicular crossing. That's what I would do. You know, if I was about to hit somebody like this, you could either break right and flow with them. If you see them ahead of time, just go behind them. Right. But if it's kind of like oh shit, they're right there, flow with them and then turn right away from them. But if you see them 50 miles out, just to try and tuck behind them if they're perpendicular. If you're along them, it really just depends on what's the best way to see and avoid their flow. If they're going to continue on trucking to the west and you're trying to go north, get behind them, right? If they don't seem like they're going to adjust their path, it's kind of like walking in the hallway, right? You don't just fucking plow into somebody because you think you've got right away, right?
Yeah.
So that's really just the way I do it, right? Because other people, they just don't give a shit, right? And you have to keep yourself safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so you also go ahead.
So I noticed that you didn't say like to increase or decrease altitude. So in that case, you wouldn't want to change your altitude. You'd want to maintain your altitude and avoid them in that case.
If descending is going to be the safest way, I prefer diverting a path because I mean a descent can be gradual and it can be hard to tell like are they descending or are they staying level, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
But if I think that I'm going to hit them on some kind of a perpendicular path, if I start descending and then they start descending because they're landing in an airport right there, well shit, now I either have to arrest my descent and try and climb really fast or dive even faster. What would have been the safer option? Would have been to just kick it left a little bit and get behind them.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. You know, and you also got to remember, you're in a G1000. You've got ADSB. You got all kinds of fancy shit in that thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out here that ain't got money like that we don't have. I have ADSB out and like I turn it on when necessary because, you know, again, it being a seaplane, like Green Bay has called the Coast Guard on me like 3 times because I land and then turn my airplane off, which turns my ADSB off. So they're under the impression that I crashed.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So just keep that in mind. You've got more avionics. You can see them on the screen a little bit better than they can see you in the event that they don't have ADSB, right?
Okay.
So
yeah, don't assume everyone can see you.
Exactly. Don't assume everyone can see you. Once you start getting into airplanes with like TCAS and stuff, obviously follow the TCAS, the terrain or the traffic collision avoidance system. But now, in yours, all that you've got is a TAWS. No, that's terrain awareness. Now all you've got is like the ADSB in and out system. It's not going to provide you directions, but just use your better judgment, right? Don't assume that everybody can see you. Drive defensively, fly defensively.
Right.
Makes sense?
All right. Makes sense.
Anything else? Are you concerned about your check ride? I'd say maybe read through the POH a couple more times. Just make sure you understand your aircraft's limitations. You understood what you could and couldn't do as a private pilot. Your nav log was pretty solid. Everything looks pretty spot on given the winds that you have in there. Fuel burn doesn't seem too far out. What airspeed are you climbing at? Again, every school.
They blanked it out, or like they grade that box out for some reason.
Oh yeah.
But typically climbing at 74 knots until 3,000 feet, and then changing it to 82 knots.
Okay. The only thing I would try to your time, fuel, and distance to climb chart doesn't do that. Right? You've read through a time, fuel, and distance climb chart. It's speed. It tells you what speed that it's expecting you to climb. So if you're going to climb at a lower speed than that, make sure you're adding like a good 0.2 or 0.3, maybe even up to 0.5 of fuel burn per hour, just to try and make up for it. Because the last thing you want to do is end up somewhere and not have enough gas to get there. Right? Because you did a shallower climb. I like following the POH. You've got a G1000, so you can see your actual fuel flow. You start getting into other airplanes that don't necessarily have fuel flow gauges, follow the POH so that you know exactly how much gas you're burning.
Okay.
All right. A lot of flight schools get these rules of thumb, but then they don't do a very good job of explaining why they're doing them to the student. And then when the student gets out of the flight school, it's like, shit, like I don't know how to make these decisions. I'm scared. Make sense?
Yeah. You had the help before.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to reach out for help. Okay. If you're concerned, like when I brought my airplane home, I asked so many people, it was like, this is the airplane I'm going to be flying. I know you've got hours in this airplane. What do you think about this cross country plan? What do you think about this? Should I adjust accordingly? So just because you get your private pilot certificate doesn't necessarily mean you're done asking questions. You have to always be right. No.
Yeah.
Reach out for help.
Okay. That makes sense.
All right.
Alrighty. Yeah. Well, what do you think that I would need more help on for my?
I'd say read through the POH a little more. Make sure you understand your systems. Aerodynamics was a little weak, so make sure you go through the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge when it comes to aerodynamics. Reading weather, you did fine. If you're concerned about your weather theory, go. The FAA has a weather handbook. It's like 19 chapters, but there's like 8 of them that include stuff that you have no business reading, like usage of radar and space weather. So there is some stuff that's good in it, but a lot of it's like, what am I ever going to use this for? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'd say it's just a few things that need to be cleaned up for the knowledge portion. I mean, you got a 90% on your written, so I'm not too concerned. Just seems like the aircraft specific stuff was a little weak.
Okay.
All right.
I'll read through that POH a couple more times.
I'm assuming your school has a pretty decent study guide.
Yeah, they give me a study guide for the stage checks, like for those just the stage checks pretty much. But I'm not yet to the a few flights away from getting the check ride, so I'm not sure if they have a study guide for the check ride yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I mean I know what a lot of flight schools do is they'll have like a, hey, study this and you'll probably be fine kind of book, which takes a lot of students out of the source material. But yeah, I mean, other than aerodynamics and a little bit of the aircraft specific stuff, I wouldn't be too concerned.
Okay.
All right.
Alrighty. I'll need to study more.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not trying to say you did bad. You did pretty good. The thing is, I just say, I don't know what questions the DP is going to ask in the way of systems, right? And that's why I'm saying study systems. The systems questions I did ask you, you were pretty solid on, other than the electrical one. Because you were like, it's 28 volt battery or 28 volt alternator, 12 volt battery. And I'm like, that's not how many batteries you actually have in the aircraft. That's kind of an important thing as well. Right. Because you need to know how much juice are you going to have in the event of an electrical failure? What's going to happen in the event of an electrical failure? Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. But no, I mean, the questions, other than the electrics one, all the questions in the way of systems you were fine on. It's just, I don't know which ones they're going to ask. So I want to make sure you know all the systems in the event that they ask some oddball one.
Yeah. Right.
Makes sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, man. You enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.